Hi, it's Leahz, and I have literally spent days researching and digging, and I have found out so much information. I didn't even know where to start. When you put all this together by the end of this video, it's pretty mind blowing, to be honest. I was pretty shocked. Some of it you might already know because it is public information, but just putting it all together and all the details I found, it's like I said, pretty mind blowing. I'm going to start here with HarperCollins, and it's one of the world's largest publishing companies, part of the big five English language publishing companies. In fact, the worldwide CEO of HarperCollins is Brian Murray. You may be familiar with his name. It has publishing groups in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and India. The company publishes many different imprints, both former independent publishing houses and new imprints. Now, in 1989, HarperCollins was bought by Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, and I've got a whole slew of information on the News Corporation and Rupert Murdoch. In fact, Rupert Murdoch is known as an alleged communist. His nickname is Red Rupert, and that is because back in college, he had a bust of Lenin in his dorm room. Okay. So I'm going to show that information to you as well, but wait till you see all this. Okay, so in 89, Collins is bought by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, and the publisher was combined with Harper and Row, which News Corp had acquired 2 years earlier. In addition to the simplified and merged name, and it talks about the logo here, we don't care about that right now. So let's move along. In 1999, News Corporation purchased the Hearst Book Group, which consisted of William Morrow and Company and Avon Books. Okay, HarperCollins also bought educational publisher Leahz and Lonsdale in 2010. Now, in 2011, HarperCollins announced that they had agreed to acquire the publisher Thomas Nelson. The purchase was completed on July 11th of 2012 with an announcement that Thomas Nelson would operate independently given the position it has in Christian book publishing. Both Thomas Nelson and Zondervan were then organized as imprints or keystone publishing programs under a new division, HarperCollins Christian Publishing. Key roles in the reorganization were awarded to former Thomas Nelson executives. Okay, so you saw there about the News Corporation and Rupert Murdoch. Okay, so far we have HarperCollins. Okay, HarperCollins is bought by Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, which also buys Zondervan Christian Books and Thomas Nelson. Okay, now they own a whole slew of things, including Fox, 20th Century Fox, GQ, and more. All right. So let's look at News Corporation. And by the way, the News Corporation, and I looked, it says here former, but I looked up the address on their official website and it is listed as the same address. I'm not sure why it says former here, but they are located at 1211 Avenue of the Americas, which happens to be in the newer 1960s, 1970s corridor of the Rockefeller Center complex. Now, we know that Rockefeller is one of the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. Interesting. The original News Corporation, or News Corp, was an American multinational mass media corporation headquartered in New York City. It was the world's fourth largest media group in 2014 in terms of revenue. Board members include prominent former Spanish Prime Minister Jose Maria Aznar. News Corp was a publicly traded company listed on the NASDAQ, formerly incorporated in Adelaide, South Australia. The company was reincorporated under Delaware General Corporation Law after a majority of shareholders approved the move on November the 12th of 2004. News Corporation was headquartered at 1211 Avenue of the Americas, New York, in the newer 1960s, 1970s corridor of the Rockefeller Center complex. Again, according to News Corporation's official website, it is still at that address. So I'm not sure why it says was. On June the 28th of 2012, Rupert Murdoch announced that after concerns from shareholders in response to recent scandals and to unlock even greater long-term shareholder value, News Corporation assets would be split into two publicly traded companies, one oriented towards media and the other towards publishing. The split formally took place on June 28th of 2013, where the present News Corp was renamed 21st Century Fox and consists primarily of media outlets, while a News Corp was formed to take on the publishing and Australian broadcasting assets. Its major holdings at the time of the split were News Limited, News International, The Times, The Sun, News of the World, Dow Jones and Company, The Wall Street Journal, HarperCollins, Fox Entertainment Group, which also includes 20th Century Fox, Fox Broadcasting Company, one of the United States' major TV networks, and we're going to get into that too. Like I said, I've got a whole slew of information to give to you. It was created in 1979 by Rupert Murdoch as a holding company for News Limited. Now I'm going to give you just a brief background on Rupert Murdoch, and I apologize we're spending so much time on Wikipedia. However, all of this information that I'm sharing with you is necessary, so by the end of this video, you'll have a full understanding. It's kind of like a puzzle, and you put it all together. Okay, so it's all going to come together by the end. Okay, so Rupert Murdoch is an Australian-born American business magnate. Murdoch became managing director of Australia's News Limited, inherited from his father, Sir Keith Arthur Murdoch, in 1952. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of global media holding company News Corporation, the world's second largest media conglomerate, and its successors, News Corp and 21st Century Fox, after the conglomerate split on June 28th of 2013. In the 1950s and 60s, he acquired a number of newspapers in Australia and New Zealand before expanding into the United Kingdom in 1969. Taking over the News of the World, followed closely by The Sun. He moved to New York City in 1974 to expand into the U.S. market, but retained interest in Australia and Britain. In 1981, he bought The Times, his first British broadsheet, and became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 1985 to satisfy the legal requirements for U.S. television ownership. In 1986, keen to adopt newer electronic publishing technologies, he consolidated his UK printing operations in Wapping, causing bitter industrial disputes. His News Corporation acquired 20th Century Fox, and that was in 1985. HarperCollins, which I just shared with you, owns Zondervan and Thomas Nelson, and that was in 1989, and the Wall Street Journal, 2007. He formed the British broadcaster Sky B in 1990, and during the 1990s expanded into Asian networks and South American television. By 2000, Murdoch's News Corporation owned over 800 companies in more than 50 countries with a net worth of over $5 billion. Now, the most recent news is in July of 2011, Murdoch faced allegations that his companies, including the News of the World, owned by News Corporation, had been regularly hacking the phones of celebrities, royalty, and public citizens. He faces police and government investigations into bribery and corruption by the British government and FBI investigations in the U.S. On July 21st of 2012, Murdoch resigned as a director of News International. On July 1st of 2015, Murdoch left his post as CEO of 21st Century Fox. Murdoch and his family owns both 21st Century Fox and News Corporation through the Murdoch Family Trust. Okay, so there's your background on Murdoch. Now we're going to get into some other things. So here we have an article on Illuminati News. It says Satanic connections to the U.S. military. Now, some of this we just covered, but some of it we did not. It says all of these facts are absolutely and easily verifiable. 15 minutes on Google would do so beyond any doubt. Fox News is owned by News Corp. News Corp owns HarperCollins book publishers. HarperCollins publishes the so-called Satanic Bible book as well as the Necronomicon and two spell books associated with them. And you can see www.harpercollins.com, and I do have that website pulled up to show you in a minute, and search for the title name to verify it. But in the ultimate act of hypocrisy, News Corporation bought Zondervan, a major Bible publisher. And you know that they also bought Thomas Nelson. If you click on their website, you can join them and their parent corporation in donating money to the Salvation Army to help Katrina victims. You know Katrina, the hurricane that had a pentagram in the eye and the path of a sickle. Very weird. And then they give the website for Zondervan. Fox News has a military analyst named Paul Vallely, a retired general, as a military affairs commentator. While in the U.S. Army, he co-authored a tract with a Colonel Michael Aquino, who was a practicing Satanist and leader of an offshoot of the Church of Satan. They created the so-called Bible of theirs. The title of the tract was Mind Wars and was on deep psyops directed at the target country's civilian populations, like ours maybe. And a few details here that are very important about this Michael Aquino. Mr. Aquino performed black magic ceremonies protected by the U.S. Constitution First Amendment at Wuhlsburg Castle in Germany, where Heinrich Himmler held rituals for his cult. Aquino later was under investigation in Nebraska over a government-related group that was kidnapping children. He was never convicted of anything. Fox News has become a 24/7 missing persons network. This is nothing if not ironic, wouldn't you say? They are desperate to chip sex offenders and are doing everything to create a climate of fear in the public with story after story after story of missing children, missing sex predators by the thousands from New Orleans, missing. And all would be well if only we could track them with an RFID implant. That is the theme. This is brought to you by a news media outfit that is associated with the very worst of the persons feared to take part in the child abduction activity. Can this be coincidence? Can the top management of Fox or News Corp not know of these things that are publicly available? And they've got a link here to www.intellibriefs.blogspot.com. The Valley and Aquino connection to Fox has been noted, but apparently not the Harper connection, and not both together, nor the synthesis of both in conjunction with the endless missing pretty girl or pretty child story, and why these stories are out there forever and over and over again. Please publicize this hypocrisy and extreme that needs to be better known. Now I've got something interesting that could be connected to that. I'm not sure, but it is noteworthy and definitely worth showing you. Just a moment. Now, if you recall a few minutes ago when we were still on Wikipedia, I mentioned a scandal that Murdoch and News Corporation was involved in. Now, here's some interesting information after having just read about this stuff, about how they are involved in all this child missing children stuff and everything like that. We just read that. Okay, so this is about the scandal. It says Rebecca Brooks, former editor of News of the World and The Sun, who later went on to lead News Corp's UK publishing arm, Andrew Coulson, another former News of the World editor, and 5 of the paper journalists. The group is accused of conspiring to hack the voicemails of more than 600 people over 6 years, beginning in October of 2000 through August of 2006. According to the police, the victims include celebrities such as Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Jude Law, Sienna Miller, and Sadie Frost, several politicians, and 13-year-old murder victim Millie Dowler. It was a July 2011 story alleging that the News of the World reporters hacked into Dowler's voicemail that kindled mass outrage and led to the current investigation. Oh, and by the way, the voicemail, which would have had any proof of anything on it, was deleted. Brooks faces additional charges of conspiracy to intercept communications in the cases of Dowler and Andrew Gilchrist, a former trade union boss, and Coulson faces 4 additional charges related to hacking in the Dowler case, and 3 others, including 2 parliamentarians. The 5 other journalists have also been charged in several specific cases. Glenn Mulcair, a private investigator hired by the papers, also charged in relation to 4 of the hacking cases, including those of Dowler again is the little girl, and Gilchrist. You can read the full list of charges from the Crown Prosecution Service here. Now we're going to go to this article here. Wait till you hear this. Okay, we just read about the little girl. It says, after 2 years of publishing stories about phone hacking at News of the World, Nick Davies of The Guardian kindled mass outrage when he reported in July of 2011 that the tabloid's reporters hacked into the voicemail of a 13-year-old girl named Millie Dowler, who was kidnapped and murdered in 2002. From there, other British papers picked up the story, reporting that among the hacking victims were the families of other murdered children, the families of those killed in the July 2005 terrorist attacks in London, and a British soldier killed in Afghanistan. So, you can see here, I just think that's kind of strange after we just read this over here. Let me go back to it. This whole Michael Aquino performing black magic ceremonies that were protected by the U.S. Constitution, First Amendment, at this castle in Germany, and how he basically was involved in the cult, okay? And he was also under investigation in Nebraska over a government-related group that was kidnapping children, but never convicted of anything. And then we look at point number 9 there, where Fox News has become this 24/7 missing persons network. Okay, but yet at the same time, they're desperate to chip sex offenders, and they try to promote television shows and things about missing children. Okay, all brought to you by the media outfit that is associated with this Michael Aquino person who was, as we just said, under investigation in Nebraska over a government-related group that was kidnapping kids. And then we tie Murdoch into all this, who owns News Corporation, which owns Fox. All right, so I just find it kind of strange that they were hacking into phone records of an abducted girl who was murdered. Then they deleted the files, or that voicemail was deleted. Whatever they got off of her phone was deleted. Okay, and then they had also hacked into other people's business who happened to be families of other murdered children, the families of those killed in the July 2005 terrorist attacks in London, and a British soldier killed in Afghanistan. So for me, I think that's definitely noteworthy and something to mention to you, because is it just coincidence? I don't know. It seems too much to be coincidence if you ask me. So that you can see for yourself, we are on the official HarperCollinsChristian.com website right here. HarperCollins Christian Publishing Incorporated is a world-leading Christian content provider. Our parent company, HarperCollins Publishers, is the second largest consumer book publisher in the world and is a subsidiary of News Corp. Though the company formed in 2012, its heritage dates back to the late 18th century. Thomas Nelson and Zondervan, two highly sought-after Christian inspirational brands, are the keystone publishing programs. Okay, so there you see that they are indeed owned by HarperCollins Publishers, which is owned by News Corporation. Okay, so you have HarperCollins Christian Publishing, HarperCollins Publishers, News Corporation, and then you have, Thomas Nelson and Zondervan, which are published by that company. And at the top, we have Rupert Murdoch, which I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, is a communist, or an alleged communist, and was known as Red Rupert in college. Let me show you some information on that. Before we go into that, I want to show you just this quick clip. I almost forgot to show you, but I just scrolled past it here and remembered that I needed to show you this. It says Grand Rapids publisher Zondervan says the connection to Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation does not present an ethical conflict. So I'm just going to share that headline with you. So you can see here, Red China has a powerful ally, Rupert Murdoch. This comes from the New York Daily News. It says, Washington, when the Beijing government wants to extend its totalitarian reach to the West, when it seeks aid in delivering its communist propaganda, blocking Western news, and even exercising censorship over foreign criticism, to whom does it turn? The answer may surprise you. Well, it goes on to say that the New York Post owner Rupert Murdoch has become a faithful partner to the Chinese communist regime, all the while posing as a political conservative, an opponent of communism, and defender of freedom. In fact, in his pursuit of profits, Murdoch appears to honor no ideology or political cause. His latest outrage, he ordered his publishing house, HarperCollins, to halt the publication of a book by Chris Patten, the last British governor of Hong Kong, that sharply criticized China's human rights abuses. Patten is no liberal. He is former chairman of Britain's Conservative Party, which Murdoch faithfully supported for 18 years. But Patten's belief in democracy has crossed Murdoch's business ambitions in China, and so Patten had to be sacrificed. The initial reason for dropping Patten's book was that it was boring. But that criticism makes no sense on two accounts. Patten is widely respected as an engaging wordsmith, and to ingratiate himself with Chinese leaders, Murdoch previously published an eye-glazing biography of former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, written by Deng's daughter Deng Rong. Murdoch also has offered huge sums for unreadable books by politically helpful authors like Dame Margaret Thatcher, who approved his TV expansion in Britain, Prince Khalid of Saudi Arabia, and House Speaker Newt Gingrich. The real reason for censoring the Patten book was offered by another HarperCollins author, Simon Heffer. Murdoch makes much more money from satellite television than he does from the printed word, and he is seeking to expand into China. He needs to propitiate one of the world's vilest regimes in order to do this. Okay, so this is a longer article, but I just wanted to show you right here, Daily News, Red China has a powerful ally, Rupert Murdoch. Now we're going to take a look at an article. We're just going to kind of briefly go over it. Who is Rupert Murdoch? On the Center for American Progress, it says, in recent years, Australian-born billionaire Rupert Murdoch has used the U.S. government's increasingly lax media regulations to consolidate his hold over the media and wider political debate in America. Consider Murdoch's empire. According to Business Week, his satellites deliver TV programs in 5 continents, all but dominating Britain, Italy, and wide swaths of Asia and the Middle East. He publishes 175 newspapers, including the New York Post and the Times of London. In the U.S., he owns the 20th Century Fox Studio, Fox Network, and 35 TV stations that reach more than 40% of the country. His cable channels include fast-growing Fox News and 19 regional sports channels. In all, as many as 1 in 5 American homes at any given time will be tuned in to a show News Corp either produced or delivered. But who is the real Rupert Murdoch? As this report shows, he is a far-right partisan who has used his empire explicitly to pull American political debate to the right. He is also an enabler of the oppressive tactics employed by dictatorial regimes, and a man who admits to having hidden money in tax havens. In short, there's more to Rupert Murdoch than meets the eye. In 2003, Rupert Murdoch told a congressional panel that his use of political influence in our newspapers or television is nonsense. But a close look at the record shows Murdoch has imparted his far-right agenda throughout his media empire. First, we want to take a look here at Murdoch the warmonger. Just after the Iraq invasion, the New York Times reported, "The war has illuminated anew the exceptional power in the hands of Murdoch, 72, the chairman of News Corp. In the last several months, the editorial policies of almost all his English-language news organizations have hewn very closely to Murdoch's own stridently hawkish political views, making his voice among the loudest in the Anglophone world in the international debate over the American-led war with Iraq." The Guardian reported, before the war, Murdoch gave his full backing to war, praising George Bush as acting morally and correctly and describing Tony Blair as full of guts for his support of the war. Murdoch said just before the war, "We can't back down now. I think Bush is acting very morally, very correctly." Murdoch, the neoconservative. Murdoch owns the Weekly Standard, the neoconservative journal that employed key figures who pushed for war in Iraq. As the American Journalism Review noted, the circulation of Murdoch's Weekly Standard hovers at only around 65,000. But its voice is much louder than those numbers suggest. Editor Bill Kristol is particularly adept at steering Washington policy debates by inserting himself and his views into the discussion. Murdoch, the oil imperialist. Murdoch has acknowledged his major rationale for supporting the Iraq invasion: oil. While both American and British politicians strenuously deny the significance of oil in the war, The Guardian of London notes, Murdoch wasn't so reticent. He believes that deposing the Iraqi leader would lead to cheaper oil. Murdoch said before the war the greatest thing to come out of this for the world economy would be $20 a barrel for oil. That's bigger than any tax cut in any country. He buttressed the statement when he later said, once Iraq is behind us, the whole world will benefit from cheaper oil, which will be a bigger stimulus than anything else. Murdoch the Intimidator. According to Agence France Presse, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News channel threatened to sue the makers of The Simpsons over a parody of the channel's right-wing political stance. In an interview this week with National Public Radio, Matt Groening recalled how the news channel had considered legal action, despite the fact that The Simpsons is broadcast on sister network, Fox Entertainment. According to Groening, Fox took a Simpsons version of the Fox News rolling news ticker, which parodied the channel's anti-Democrat stance with headlines like, "Do Democrats cause cancer?" Now, the next headline says Murdoch, the news editor. Obviously, I'm not going to read all these, but you can go to the link. I'll provide it in an article I do, which eventually the link will be here below this video, and you can go and read the rest of it. This next one says Murdoch, the Bush supporter. He told Newsweek before the war Bush will either go down in history as a very great president or he'll crash and burn. I'm optimistic it will be the former by a ratio of 2-1. One senses he is a man of great character and deep humility. Murdoch, the Bush family employer. As Slate reports, Murdoch put George W. Bush cousin John Ellis in charge of Fox's election night vote counting operation. Ellis made Fox the first network to declare Bush the victor, even as the New Yorker reported that Ellis spent the evening discussing the election with George W. and Jeb Bush. After the election, Fox bragged that it attracted 6.8 million viewers on election night, meaning Ellis was in a key position to tilt the election for President Bush. We've got a couple things here. Murdoch, the mixer of business and politics. Murdoch, the New York City political boss. But I'll tell you what, I want to jump ahead to the mentionings that have to do with his communism, and that starts about right here. It says Rupert Murdoch thinks of himself as a staunch anti-communist, but a look at the record shows that when his own profits are on the line, he is willing to do favors for the most repressive regimes on the planet. Murdoch, the defender of repressive regimes. The last governor of Hong Kong before it was handed back to China, Chris Patten, signed a contract to write his memoirs with Murdoch's publishing company, HarperCollins. But according to the Evening Standard, when Murdoch heard that the book East and West would say unflattering things about the Chinese leadership with whom he was doing satellite TV business, the contract was canceled. It caused a furor in the press, except, of course, in the Murdoch papers, which barely mentioned the story. According to Business Week, internal memos surfaced suggesting the canceling of the contract was motivated by corporate worries about friction with China, where HarperCollins boss Rupert Murdoch has many business interests. Murdoch, the apologist for dictatorships. Time magazine reported that while Murdoch is supposedly a devout anti-Soviet and anti-communist, he became bewitched by China in the early 90s. In an effort to persuade Chinese dictators that he would never challenge their behavior, Murdoch threw the BBC off Star TV, his satellite network operating in China, after BBC aired reports about Chinese human rights violations. Murdoch argued the BBC was gratuitously attacking the regime, playing film of the massacre in Tiananmen Square over and over again. In 1998, Chinese President Jiang Zemin praised Murdoch for the objective way in which his papers and television covered China. And that source is from Time magazine. Murdoch, the propagandist for dictators. While Murdoch justifies his global media empire as a threat to totalitarian regimes everywhere, according to Time magazine, Murdoch actually pays the salary of a top TV consultant working to improve the Chinese government's communist state-run television, CCTV. As Time notes, nowadays, News Corp and CCTV International are partners of sorts, exchanging agreements to air each other's content even though CCTV is a key propaganda arm of the Communist Party. Now, before I go on, I want you to understand how big this news corporation is. So big, in fact, that it owns the company that owns these Christian publishers, Zondervan and Thomas Nelson. Okay, so they own all these things. So I want you to think about a new world order, one world government, because there's something else I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. But I want you to keep that in the back of your mind as you think about this news corporation with Murdoch being at the top of the chain, and he owns all these companies and all these organizations and all these newspapers and everything, and how this could hugely affect the New World Order or play right into that. Murdoch, the enabler of human rights violators. According to the LA Times, Murdoch had his son James, now in charge of News Corp's China initiative, attack the Falun Gong, the spiritual movement banned by the Chinese government after 10,000 of its followers protested in Tiananmen Square. With Rupert in attendance, James Murdoch called the movement a dangerous and apocalyptic cult and lambasted the Western press for its negative portrayal of China's awful human rights record. Murdoch startled even China supporters with his zealous defense of that government's harsh crackdown on Falun Gong and criticism of Hong Kong democracy supporters. Murdoch also said Hong Kong democracy advocates should accept the reality of life under a strong-willed, absolutist government. It appeared to some to be a blatant effort to curry favor with the China's repressive government. Murdoch, the hider of money in communist Cuba. Despite a U.S. embargo of communist Cuba, the Washington Post reports, News Corp's organizational chart consists of no less than 789 business units incorporated in 52 countries, including Mauritius, Fiji, and even Cuba. From union busting to tax evading, Rupert Murdoch has established a shady business record that raises serious questions about his corporate ethics. Murdoch, the union buster. Okay, that's about unions. I don't think that has to do with communism. The corporate tax evader, the lover of offshore tax havens, the abuser of tax loopholes. So you get the picture here. This guy is pretty dangerous. He's huge. He owns a lot, and he's pretty evil. And don't forget, he's at the top of the food chain, right in line with Christian publishers, Zondervan and Thomas Nelson. I'm going to quickly show you so you can see for yourself News Corporation, newscorp.com. You can see right at the top, K. Rupert Murdoch, Executive Chairman, News Corporation. Then we look here. This is their About Us section. We are a network of leading companies in the worlds of diversified media, news, education, and information services. And you can take a look there at many of the places that they are over. Okay. Vogue, Smart Source, Mercury, NT News, Foxtel, the REA Group, Fox Sports, The Sun, the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and so on. Okay, so you see that. Oh, and GQ. All right. Now, here is more companies in their network. News Corp Australia, News UK, Dow Jones, New York Post, HarperCollins Publishers, News America Marketing, Storyful, and Move. Okay, so that gives you an idea. And then there you go again, Chairman Rupert Murdoch. And then, of course, their UK newspaper section. Now, this is pretty interesting. We know that Murdoch or News Corporation is over Fox, and they have this show I'm sure most of you have had to have heard about by now called Lucifer. It says, premiere, upon leaving hell, Lucifer Morningstar retreats to L.A. for a more exciting life. Then over here it says, upon leaving hell, Lucifer Morningstar retreats to L.A. for a more exciting life. When the murder of a friend connects him with LAPD detective Chloe Decker, Lucifer becomes intrigued with the idea of punishing criminals, sending the devil himself into a struggle between good and evil. And you can see some of the captures here. Los Angeles is the new Sin City. Did you know Lucifer is based on a comic? It shows you that. And it's got another picture, 2 weeks, Lucifer. Of course, it's out now, but this was when they were first advertising. Power of Confessions. May 2016 be filled with plenty of deep, dark secrets. And then there's more. Oh, I thought this was interesting. Okay, we know the Bible says that the Antichrist it talks about will be a person who is charismatic and everything. Well, I thought it was pretty interesting. It says, Lucifer Morning Star is too hot to handle, charming, charismatic, devilish. Okay, now I've got more on it. You can see right here, there's a little premiere on it. TV review Lucifer. And then we have an article here. Why is the Fox network spending millions to bring the devil into your home? Now, before we take a look at that, I have a interesting picture I want to show you that was put out in regards to Lucifer. So do you guys find it coincidence or ironic that Fox, who is owned by Murdoch, is airing this Lucifer show? And it says, I hope all these big awards nominees don't forget to thank me. Lucifer is coming. And here we are living in the end times on the very verge of the tribulation. And we know that the man who is going to be the Antichrist will soon be revealed. And we know we're right there. We're just right there. We have so many things happening, too many things to deny it. And here we have Rupert Murdoch, who owns everything. Oh, not everything, but he owns a lot. A good majority of everything media related and so many other things as well, including Thomas Nelson and Zondervan. Can you see how that can play right into the New World Order, the Illuminati, and so forth? I can clearly see that. I just think it's more than coincidence that we're living in the days we're living in. And here we have this show that has come out saying Lucifer is coming. It's so bizarre, all these things, how they're happening. And Rupert Murdoch right at the top, who also is a communist. And then when I showed you the headline of that one article, basically that Zondervan, one of the head honchos of one of the Zondervans, didn't seem to mind anything about Rupert Murdoch in relation to doing business with him and his companies. Going back to this article I just showed you moments ago, why is the Fox network spending millions to bring the devil into your home? The Fox network wants you to think of them as the family channel, and they don't want you to dwell on the fact that they spend millions producing books, television, and movies that glorify the devil, promote the homosexual lifestyle, and trash biblical Christianity. That makes them, by definition, both anti-family and anti-Christian, or in my opinion, anti-Christ, as I've shown you. Fox Network offering up a variety of pro-satanic and LGBT-friendly publishing and programming. Now, the Bible says in James 4:7, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Since its inception, the Fox Network has portrayed itself as the home of conservatism and family values. But a closer look shows a completely different picture. In fact, they are doubling down on pro-satanic and horror programming. Last week, we told you about the Fox Network's new marquee show called Lucifer, a show about a cool, hot-looking devil who drives a Corvette and owns a nightclub. Today, we find out they are also preparing a new series based on The Exorcist. The drama is a modern reinvention of William Peter Blatty's best-selling 1971 book, The Exorcist. The project is described as a propulsive, serialized psychological thriller following two very different men tackling one family's case of horrifying demonic possession and confronting the face of the devil. If this wasn't bad enough, the rabbit hole goes deeper, a lot deeper. Rupert Murdoch's media conglomerate News Corp owns the publisher HarperCollins, as I've shown you, and HarperCollins bought Christian publisher Zondervan. Zondervan says they are the largest publisher of Bibles in the world, including the favorite NIV Bible, the King James AV 1611 Bible versus the NIV Bible. HarperCollins then bought Thomas Nelson Publishing, the largest general publisher of Christian material in the world. Combined, they represent nearly half of all Christian reading material on the face of the earth. Let that thought sink in. Rupert Murdoch, with the Fox Network, owns and controls half of all the world's Christian publishing. Now, if you can see this clearly, the kingdom of hell has control over Christian publishing. Can you see that? And we're looking at the Antichrist soon making his appearance. It's pretty interesting. Now for the other shoe. Rupert Murdoch's empire also owns a company called Avon that publishes and promotes Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible. Now do you see why they are pushing all this satanic programming on their television network? It's a full court press to make you comfortable with the devil. They want you to think that the devil is a joke and that hell is not a real place, but it is. When viewed in total, you can clearly see an organized effort by Rupert Murdoch to use his wealth, influence, and power to constantly push a pro-satanic and pro-LGBT agenda. Rupert Murdoch's HarperCollins is also the publisher of The Joy of Gay Sex and titles by anti-Christian author Richard Dawkins. Now here's an interesting verse that he has included in this article, Luke 13:32. And he said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. The Fox network wants you to think of them as the family channel, and they don't want you to dwell on the fact that they spend millions producing books, television, and movies that glorify the devil, promote the homosexual lifestyle, and trash biblical Christianity. That makes them, by definition, both anti-family and anti-Christian. It's time to dump the Fox. Well, and as I said, anti-Christ. I also want to mention that I had a dream the other night, and in my dream, there was this massive tornado. Except before it turned into a funnel cloud, I looked up in the sky and I saw this red and black image of a sexy witch. But it was very scary looking. It was terrifying. But it had a sexy appearance to it. And then all of a sudden, it turned into a huge, massive funnel cloud. And I was in this house and there was other people there, and the tornado went right through the house, but it never did any damage or harmed us. Then the next day, I totally forgot about the dream and I was praying, and the Lord spoke to me and he said, Lynn, there is a massive, horrible storm coming to the United States of America. He said, and this is going to be one of my judgments for sexual sin, including abortion. He said it's going to be a nasty storm. So I find it rather odd that I had this dream of it was a sexy witch that turned into this massive funnel cloud. And it was like the most, the biggest, most terrible funnel cloud ever. And it was so frightening. I just find that strange. And then the Lord spoke that to me. He didn't say when. He just said soon. I don't know what soon is to God, but that was what he said to me. And it's just going to be one of the judgments for sexual sin in this nation. So I really think people ought to be listening and praying and getting ready because something's coming. And by the way, when he said storm, I don't know if it's going to be an actual tornado or some type of physical storm, or if by storm he meant an economy crash or just something bad in general. I don't know. I can only tell you the dream I had and what he said. So you've got all the information here. I have shown you clearly Rupert Murdoch's background and everything, literally everything. So it's up to you to make a decision what you think. Here are the facts. This is all the information. Take it and do with it what you will. But be it known, Jesus Christ is coming soon. So let's pray and keep our heads up and stay on top of everything that's happening. God bless you. And I just want to thank you all for your kindness and for subbing to me and for your prayers and your love. And the website of mine and Lisa Havens is up. We are having some work on it. There's some things we don't care for, but it is operational and fully functional. It is www.freedomnationnews.com. Please be sure and go there and visit us and check us out and subscribe to us. Again, it's freedomnationnews.com. By the way, I will be putting a banner at the top, or I'll be having it put up at the top. I will be at the annual Pikes Peak Prophecy in the News conference coming in June. I'll have more information on that for you as it comes along. Thanks a lot. God bless you.
Tell us, though, about some of the newer faces that maybe our viewers haven't met yet and why they need to come.
Right, yeah. Well, one of the things that in planning this conference, one of the things we talked about was we really thought it would be great to invite some sort of new faces that have a lot of appeal to younger folks, to the millennials, as we call them.
And they're already connected through blogs and
Yeah,
and
and
things.
so some of the folks that we are, I'll mention a few of the names here in a moment, but these are individuals that speak to prophetic topics. They are big on the internet. They are well recognized. Younger audiences know them very well. And so we think that it's going to be a way, by inviting them, we're going to see a lot of younger faces. And we think that's a really good dynamic to bring into the conference.
I agree. Tell us who some of these folks may
Yeah,
be.
so certainly one of the ones that I would highlight is Michael Snyder. Michael's appeared on a lot of major Christian programs recently, noted for his writing of the Economic Collapse blog.
Okay.
Michael is considered a great authority on economic issues, and Michael told me that he grew up listening to J.R. Church up in Idaho.
Founder of Prophecy in the News.
Founder of Prophecy in the News, and so he is really excited about being a part of this.
Good.
Lynn Leahz. Lynn has a real big following. She has something approaching 100,000 subscribers to her YouTube channel.
All right.
And Lynn posts several programs each week, and she has a great following, and she's not afraid to deal with any subjects that relate to Bible prophecy. So we're excited about her.
We look forward to having her.
Yes, absolutely. I might mention one more. There's several more, but I mentioned one more. Anthony Patch. I've gotten to know Anthony. Anthony is a noted expert on CERN and the issue of the Hadron Collider.
Yes.
And the search for other dimensions. And he's been a frequent guest on a number of the Coast to Coast and Caravan to Midnight shows and so forth that are secular in orientation. They occasionally do have Christian guests on there, but Anthony's frequently been on those programs, and he is an expert in this area.
As you speak about other dimensions, it's you and I think in terms of spiritual dimensions, but even today, new frontiers of science and quantum physics are redefining the nature of reality.
Absolutely.
So he's bringing a scientific
yes.
as well as a scriptural aspect.
Yeah,
to
and
that.
he'll mesh well, I think, with Stan Deo, who also covers
Yeah.
these things, who's a familiar face. And we think that's going to really create some interesting opportunities, perhaps even to do a panel or two. So we're looking at that possibility.
Well, quickly about our upcoming conference at Pikes Peak. We have a private screening. Tell us
Great
about
point.
that quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, a friend of mine, Kevin McAfee, who is a noteworthy Christian filmmaker. Many people will be familiar with his movie Into the Spear. Beyond the Gates of Splendor is another documentary. He's won many awards. Kevin is going to be unveiling a private screening for our audience on a feature-length film that will not have been yet released to over 1,000 screens in the United States. So we're going to have, in effect, a large private screening of this new film, and people will be very impressed. This is not your typical Christian film. This is a great work that stands up to Hollywood standards, because Kevin is plugged into Hollywood, and a great Christian, too, from Oklahoma, in fact.
All right. Well, there you have it. You can't get this screening anywhere else. You won't hear the great rapture debate anywhere else.
That's right.
Need to be at the Prophecy in the News Pikes Peak Conference this summer, June 17, 18, and 19. And again, to tell our viewers, the registration cost is $90. We've negotiated special hotel room rates at the Marriott in Colorado Springs, $90. And we want to urge you to get online and register. Now, you can register online very easily. If you're not used to doing that, don't let that scare you away. It's a very secure site. You'll see the little padlock at the top of your address window, lets you know that you're absolutely secure in your information you share. And if you've ordered through our bookstore online, it's going to be a lot like that. But you can actually get your name in, get your registration. You still can call, and we certainly don't discourage that. But by doing it online, it's faster for you. It's faster for us. It's more efficient. It keeps better track of all the records, and we encourage you to do that if you will. If that's something you can't do or don't want to try to do, surely call us at the 800 number. But let's look forward to a great registration. We're just going to be excited to have a packed out group.
Oh, it'll be great. We certainly want folks to come. Be aware that you should be coming on Thursday, pre-check in basically that evening. And the conference will run for 3 full days, and so be prepared for that. You may not want to be going back until Monday morning.
It's going to be a great time. I hope you're going to be with us. We'll see you there.